Guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. It is New Year's Day over here at Brian's shop, B&K Performance. Appreciate Brian hanging out and helping today. We just pushed the race car out of the trailer. We are going to try to pull the transmission out, see what we got going on. I think we probably laid the fins over in the torque converter, or we're having some fluid issues in the torque converter. I'm going to show y'all the data log real fast. I'm going to go over it with you real fast, what it's doing with cooler line pressure and what it's doing for RPM. So this is the last pass we made at Thunder Valley. If you look, we take off, let go of the trans brake button, and shifted the car right there. See, it shifted, actually calmed it down. It had a little bit of wheel speed in first gear. But look at the dry shaft speed versus the engine RPM. Is wild. 8,300 RPM, 4,500 dry shaft speed. So clearly it's not working like it should. And if you look at converter pressure, and now there again, I'm not a guru on converter pressure, but this is converter pressure. When we let go of the trans brake button, it's at 41. It spikes up top of first gear, it's at 40, and barely spikes up at 62. And then by the end of the run, it's down into 30s. So that's just not working like it should. So y'all know I had the ATI regulator valve on it. Transmission was working absolutely perfect first time we took it out, and it was shifting really hard, and that's good. Anton got it so that it's got a good, hard, firm, crisp shift. That's good, but it was knocking the tire off. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna play with this pressure regulator, drop the pressure a little bit, see if we can make it so the converter is a little bit softer. So I screwed it up and I made it so it had no converter pressure. So, I mean, none. Like, the valve was completely open. So we had like 30 pounds of pressure. So I may have messed up something internally in the transmission. I was doing some research last night because I couldn't sleep. And I went to a Sonic's website and they were talking about balancing the pressure regulator valve. And so if it goes out of balance, apparently on some of the valves, it keeps line pressure up in the transmission, but then it starts restricting it going to the torque converter. And so that's kind of what it feels like too. So it's either we've messed the torque converter up, or when I messed that valve up and put it the wrong way, completely opened it, basically, I think what could have happened is that valve could have got stuck in the open position. And so now it's just bypassing all the fluid. Unfortunately for both of those, we got to pull the transmission out to make this thing so we can even look at it. So let's see how easy it's going to be to get this transmission out. If y'all want to support the channel, head on over to turbojohnracing.com, grab yourself some hats and t-shirts. We also got those zippy tags we made. If y'all want to see those, check those out. I appreciate everything y'all do. Thanks. All right, Brian, what do you think? Is it going to be easy to get a transmission out?
No. It's not going to be easy at all.
So most of the time when they have a chassis car, this is nice, the exposed transmission, because you can get to everything, right?
Yeah, normally you can get to everything from the bottom, though. This has a solid floor, so
It's got to come out.
you got to lay all up in the jungle gym to get all the bolts out of it.
Oh my goodness.
I'm already hurting.
And that's so so we thought about that when we put it together, and we were like, well, I mean, hopefully we don't have to pull the transmission and torque converter out, because there's just, like you said, it's in the middle of the car.
Well, that's why we put a new one in there to start with.
Right.
Hoping we wouldn't have to mess with it for a year or so.
And so, you know, it's just one of those things. I mean, it's part of it. It's race car life. And I mean, I screwed something up. So, you know, it is what it is. And so we're going to, and I thought about this when we were putting it in there. I was like, man, what if I had to pull the pan off the transmission? Even just to do like clean the pan, or I mean, just do anything.
I mean, you can't do anything to this thing without pulling it out of the car.
It's got to come out of the car.
And that's pulling that dry shaft tunnel out. All the shifter, CO2. It's going to be good times.
Yeah, I mean, we might, I don't know, maybe when we pull the transmission and get it out, maybe we should look at evaluating what we need to do to make it so that we can pull it out through the bottom.
There's nothing you can do.
We'd have that diagonal bar's in the way.
There's a bar in the way there. You need to get rid of that bar and move it up above it. No, there's nothing you can do.
There's nothing we can do without cutting the middle of the chassis out, which we're not going to do. We're not going to do that. So that bar right there is what he's talking about. We would have to completely take that bar out to make it so that, yeah, that ain't going to work.
We need to do one of them Daddy Dave's slide the transmission bars.
You know, we could probably do that, couldn't we?
It's got that hook. It's got a bar, and it just shoop, falls right in place.
They just put it on there when they're pulling it in and out, don't they?
Yeah, it's really cool.
We probably could do that. Well, luckily, Brian, we did not weld that transmission tunnel in. So the transmission tunnel, that thing is bolt in, so that's good. So that is a good thing. So we can get that out without having any issues. See if we can get this transmission changed out in world record time.
Might be able to get it out.
Look now, I mean, we got to make this thing serviceable too, because we got a spare transmission. And I mean, what if we had to track it? We need to change it in 45 minutes.
That's what Brandon's for. Come on.
Woo.
Come on, baby. You can do it.
All right, guys, so we did just find one problem too. This catch can, there's a vent up here on the top. It is not venting. Now there is a vent back here on the back, but that's a problem. So if it builds way too much pressure up in there, that one in the back may not be able to vent enough. So what we're going to do now, we're going to check line pressure just to make sure that's good. But we're going to go into this port right down here, basically on the servo, and Brian's got a tester. And so we'll it's just all it is a gauge. I just didn't have everything at the track to do it. And then we'll check that out. This is going to be really challenging to get out of here with all the electronics on this side. Shoot. All right, guys, so we just cranked it up. We need all our hands because we couldn't record it. But anyway, this is a little tester valve he's got. This is a expensive Matco, but any type of, basically it'll work. But basically tie it down into right here, and we cranked it up with the car not in gear. So in parking neutral, you have nothing. You put it in first gear, this thing jumped up to like 240, 250 PSI. Put it in second gear, it does the same thing. So we got good internal line pressure in the transmission. So that tells us either we got a problem in the torque converter, or like I was saying, that valve may be stuck and redirecting fluid away from the torque converter. So we're going to try to snatch transmission out real fast, open up torque converter, and see what we see in the torque converter. All right, guys, transmission is out. Brian was able to get all the top stuff out, and everything come out fairly easy, other than I just squeezed my finger. So we're going to go take the torque converter apart real fast, see what we see there.
Go ahead and just get this out of here.
Okay, that's probably a good idea.
While we're already hurt.
And we were talking to Anton, and there's a chance that the vent up there... Hold on, Brian. All right, guys, well, the transmission was remarkably easy to get out, other than picking it up over this bar. Brian, that was kind of heavy.
It was very heavy over the bar.
Over the bar was kind of difficult, and of course fluid went everywhere. But we're learning. It wasn't bad getting the bolts out.
Yeah, and got old dudes in here trying to help you.
I know, right? It got two old dudes. But look, when we built this thing, we made sure that when we wired it, everything was out of the way. So you prefer having to lay under the car to drop the transmission, or pull it out through the inside?
Pull it out like that. That was easy.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I mean, it was a challenge, but of course we took the battery out. All this stuff bolts out, so moved all that stuff over there. And instead of going that way, though, we decided it would be easier to come out this side. And I think that was the right move. I think it was.
Come right out.
Yeah, so it wasn't too
I
bad.
just like it because I can get to all the bolts with the electric ratchet.
Every one of them. You didn't have to, there wasn't no... Remember on the Mustang with that freaking stock transmission tunnel?
Bolt.
Oh, my goodness. What a pain in the butt. So transmission is out. We got the torque converter apart. Let me go look at the torque converter real fast. This is a huge torque converter. It is spragless. So this is the stator. When you look at this, and I'm not a real big torque converter guy, but the fluid smelled kind of burnt in here. And so when I first pulled it apart, if you look at these fins out here, you go, oh, that's the problem. That's where the fins are laid over. But then I remembered, I don't know if y'all remember, several videos back, this is Hughes, and this is how they adjust the actual fin angle. So it looks like crap. You would think they would actually weld it back in, but this is, I went back and looked at some of my pictures, and I actually sent some pictures, and they were like, no, that is fine. Now, it got kind of hot in here, and, you know, this didn't really touch, but it does smell kind of burnt in here. So, talking with Anton, what we think is happening is this vent right here, there's a vent right here on top, and this vent is clogged up. And so, I've had in the past where vents get clogged and transmissions don't work right. And so, that explains a lot what happened. And so now my theory is the first 2 passes we run the transmission, I had a lot of shift RPM drop. I'll show you those data logs. Actually, I only got the first pass and the second pass. Second pass is the only one I actually got the shift drop because that was the second pass of the car when we were at Thunder Valley. But it dropped back and the converter was really tight. And the converter was just tight. So that's when I started manipulating the valve. All right, guys, so this is the second pass the first day we had it out. Red line trace here is actually RPM. See, it comes up, and we shifted it this time. I made it through the shift 6100, and it fell back to 5600, which is perfect. Now, unfortunately, I did not get a transmission pressure log on this one because I forgot to hook it up. This was the first outing with the car. Something else to look at real quick right here. Engine RPM when it was right here in second gear. 5,600 RPM, drive shaft speed was 5,100. So it was spinning a little bit, and you can see the way it jumped up. The green line was drive shaft speed. But look how close the engine RPM actually is to drive shaft speed. But I think now what happened, so what we're thinking possibly now is with this vent, when I kept running it with no vent in the transmission, and if you remember the other problem, so it has a little teeny vent back here in the back, but that's a very small vent. But I have a screw in, this is screw in now. So this dipstick is not going to blow out. Like a lot of times it will blow dipstick out or, you know, fluid go everywhere, but that's not the case. So I've got this little 1/4 inch line here, and this 1/4 inch line was clogged. So what we're thinking now, probably what happened is the pressure got really high in the transmission as the converter, as everything gets hot, right? So that's why you have to have a vent, is because everything gets hot. So we're thinking it's blowed out a seal somewhere in the transmission, one of the converter feed. Now we did check line pressure internal on the transmission. It's got like 240, 250 PSI inside the transmission. But you know, the fluid, the way the fluid flows in the transmission, it has a lot of things it does. So you have internal line pressure. That would also explain why the transmission, if I'm driving through the pits and I shift, it shifts hard and it's like, it almost barks the tires. I mean, so it hits really hard. But what we're thinking is it's not getting fluid to the converter, and that's why we got low fluid pressure. So we just cranked it all up again. We took the vent off. We were hoping that just by venting it, we were going to be good. I didn't record this because there again, we ain't got enough hands. But Brian had the pressure gauge on the port on the transmission. I had the computer up. We got everything nice and warm. We had 250 pounds of line pressure at the servo. And then even with this coming out, it had dropped down to like 60 or 70 once it got warm. Now, when we first cranked it up, the pressure was like 125, 110. I was like, oh, that's it. Problem's fixed. And then I was like, well, maybe we need to let it warm up. So we got nice and warm. Then we compared that data log to our first pass on this past yesterday when we were at Thunder Valley. I'm going to get this transmission back to Anton and let him pull it apart since he's done it. And, you know, it's not Anton's fault that I screwed it up. It's just something that I didn't. I'm glad I thought about it yesterday. I'm really glad that I thought about that vent. And, you know, that little 1/4 inch vent may not even be enough vent. So what I'm going to have to do is take that little screen off the vent, and that way we can get that thing fully vented. All right, guys, while we're over here, the transmission's out. Brian is going to go ahead and do what everybody in the chat has been yelling at me for.
What's going on now?
I've been telling everybody it's going on. The only reason we didn't have the front end on is because we were racing in races that it didn't matter. It actually worked better with it off. Everybody's going to be so happy that I'm adding 50 pounds to the front of the car, and now I got to add another 50 pounds to the back to offset it. I was not unhappy running it without the front end.
But man, everybody in my chat, boy, they don't. But I ain't gonna lie, they ain't wrong. It looks much better with the front end on it. It looks much better. It looks a lot better. And so he's gonna piece all this stuff back together. I mean, just a little bit of priming and a little bit of paint, and he'll have this thing all one color, slicked up, and we're gonna be good to go. Transmission, we talked to Anton. I'm gonna take him that transmission that's over there that he built, and I'm gonna also take him my spare one back here, my Reed one. And this Reed one, remember, this is the one that we throw together at the very, this was in the car when we wrecked the car. And so basically, this one's got a bunch of used junk in it. But this case is pretty new. Converter ended up being pretty good, so that's fine. We already got that back together. So the case is in good shape. The case is actually pretty new. And these Reed cases, apparently the metal is a little bit different in it. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to swap the good guts that he put in the JW case that I had. We're going to put all that stuff in here. So guys, making some progress. It's a good day. We had a good time over here. I appreciate Brian helping out and helping get the transmission and stuff out, working on this front end stuff. We'll have this thing back together soon. We got a few changes we got to make to the roll cage. We got to make that car so it's a little more comfortable for me to drive. And so that's probably going to include, like what we were talking about with Mike, cutting those bars out and redoing them. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next couple weeks. All right, guys, comment, like, and subscribe. If y'all want to support the channel, head on over to turbojohnracing.com. Grab yourself some hats and t-shirts. Thanks, guys.